So let's have a little chat, shall we? Let's have a little occult DC gossip chat. Well, really not DC gossip, but just some gossip chat. This is your host, The Occult View. I want to talk about a situation that's going on in the place where I live. There's a man who has recently positioned himself as the vice president of the HOA or Tenants Association, whichever one you want to call it, because both are literally, or not literally, but both are similar in nature, okay? But let's just say the Tenant Association. This man has now been put in a position of power in the building where I live at, right? And here's the problem with that. This man has verbally abused women. He has allegedly, and I'm going to say allegedly because I don't know 100%, but 90% I do. But I'm going to say he actually did it. He was sexually harassing a woman in the building. Now, this was all before he became the vice president of the tenant association. Then, this same woman that he was sexually harassing, at some point they had a relationship with each other. I don't know whether it was sexual or not, but something happened where it went sour. And he began a campaign of terrorism and harassment against this woman. And by the way, this man is a black African man from Ghana. This man has engaged in all forms of harassment against people, particularly women, excuse me. He recently got into a altercation with another female, a different female this time. He wanted something from her that pertained to the records of the tenant association because I believe she was the vice president at one time, and there was something that he needed from her. He had an appointment to go to, a doctor's appointment or something like that. He came back early and he was knocking at her door, well, bamming at her door like the police. She was in the shower when he did it. She didn't know he was knocking. That's harassment. That is harassment, bullying, intimidation, etc., etc. Let me back up for a minute. I'll get back to that story. Let me back up for a minute. In 2019, when he first moved into our community, I had an altercation with him as well, right? There was a function taking place And he wanted something from that function that he was not entitled to. And the woman that was running the function, an older woman, he was trying to bully her into giving him what he wanted. Right? So I was trying to mediate the situation. I had nothing against him. But then when I was trying to help, he don't talk to me. This is what this man said to me. Don't talk to me. And that triggered me. I was like, don't talk to you. I said, I don't say nothing to none of you anyway in here. And I don't. I don't deal with these people in my building. I don't deal with these people because I know the type of people that they are. They come from very, very, let's just say, a lot of these people come from very, very bad circumstances, including him. He came to this country thinking that a white woman was going to marry him so he could get citizenship. This was years ago. But somehow he got citizenship. He talks reckless about America, but you moved to America from Ghana because you could not make a good life for yourself in Ghana and you could not afford to live in Ghana. But then you want to talk crap about Americans and you want to have an apathy towards Black Americans. He's prejudiced and he's racist like a lot of African men are. And I don't care who I offend by saying that. But see, what they don't understand is that their weak magic doesn't work on Native American soil. But that's another story. So I got into it with him. I cussed him out. I cussed him out so badly that when he went back to his floor, he could not even go to his apartment. He was shaking. Because see, mine is stronger than yours. You're in the land of my ancestors. Okay? This is where my ancestors are. You're not in your native land anymore. And he comes to this country not only showing disrespect for Black people, but mainly showing disrespect for the American Black woman. Here we go. So going back to the story earlier, the woman whose door he was bamming on because he wanted something from her that pertained to the tenant association, the woman was in the shower. She didn't hear him. And she asked him, she said, sir, basically, why are you bamming at my door like the police? She said, I was in the shower. He tried to tell this woman, you weren't in the shower. You were just ignoring me at your door. This crazy, maniacal, psychopathic person. Right? So, they go back and forth. And he says, FUB, and walks away. Right? He gets what he wants from her because she's supposed to. It was a key to a file closet or something like that that pertained records for the tenant association that she was supposed to turn over to him. No problem. But he told her to hold on to it until he got back from the doctor's office or something like that. But he must have got back early. She took a shower. He comes knocking at her door like the police, intimidating and harassing her. But here's the kicker, y'all. Before all of this happened, That woman was the one that recommended him for the MFing job as vice president of the tenant association. She was the one that encouraged the tenants to vote for him, not me, because I already know he's some trash. He don't like me and I don't like him. He don't speak to me and I don't speak to him. And he's already felt my fury years ago. But that very same woman that he bammed at her door, that woman, she was the one that encouraged people to vote him in as the vice president for the tenant association. And this is what I want to talk about right here. She knew that this man had a history of harassing women in the building, sexually harassing women in the building. And not only that, she doesn't know this part. He's been going around the building telling multiple people that he has had sexual relations with this woman behind her back. I don't know if it's true. Doesn't matter if it's true or not to me. It's not my business. He went into details. He didn't say it to me. He said it to other people, and it's circulating in the building, and it has been circulating for quite some time. These are grown people. But this is the man that she promoted and that she spoke up for to be the vice president for the tenant association. Because he is a predator. He's a predator. He walks around with sunglasses on. He never wants anyone to see what he looks like. He's a creep and a predator. And this is who you all voted in as the vice president of the tenant association? And then people wonder why the world is in the mess that it's in right now. This is the real zombie apocalypse right here. See, people keep thinking that Hollywood stuff. No. The zombie apocalypse that we see in the 3D world, it's people who are mindless, who cannot think critically. They have no comprehension skills, and they have no discernment or intuition. People are so thirsty for a leader because people don't want to take responsibility for their lives and their own actions. We don't need another hero. If there are things going on in your community, in your building, or in your community in general, you don't need a spokesperson. You can be your own spokesperson. And the tenant association doesn't really do anything anyway. They're not effective. And then you choose a person who is biased, who's a misogynistic person, who's a narcissist. You choose someone like that as the vice president for the tenant association. You position and put a person in power like that. So the woman who advocated for him, the one that he flipped on recently, she's a Black American woman. Now he's going around the building making threats that she don't really know me like that. I will punch her in her face. I'll knock her out. His words, not mine. I'm only describing what he said he would do to her. But I don't think he want to do that because that lady carries a gun. I don't think he wants to do that. And what really not upsets me, but what really gets to me, this is the kicker, y'all. This is what I want Black women to listen. Come close to Black women. I'm going to tell y'all this. Do you know, because a lot of Black women don't like that lady, they are advocating for this man to harass, bully, be aggressive, even potentially violent against this woman? simply because they don't like her. Now, I can see if it was another woman going back and forth with her. But because of your dislike for another woman, you're okay with a man verbally, psychologically, potentially physically harming and harassing another woman? You're okay with that? These black women in this building, they're okay with it. They're okay with it. That's why they voted him in. Well, she encouraged it because she thought that he had changed his ways, but he hasn't changed his ways. And then on top of that, she doesn't even know that he's going around the building telling people that they had intimate relations with each other. She doesn't even know that he's telling people this, and whether they had intimate relations or not, that is between a man and a woman. What a man and a woman do, everybody don't need to know. That is between them. If that woman decided that she wanted to have an intimate relationship with that man, that is their business. I am not knocking her for that. But now that piece of information has been floating around the community, around the building. To shame her, to blame her, to shame her, to attack her, to degrade her. And all of the black women in here, they're like little hens thinking that it's something to be proud of because this woman is being shamed because she has an active sex life. But because they don't like her, it's okay for her to be degraded. It's okay for her to be threatened. It's okay for her to be threatened because they don't like her. So now we have a maniac, a sexual deviant, a creep who is in a position of power in the building because no one wants to take responsibility for their own actions. No one wants to do the work that it requires to make the community better. Everyone needs a leader, and the president of the Tenant Association, he's weak. And he's an alcoholic. He's not a bad person. The point that I'm making is this. This is indicative of how the world and the 3D world is operating. We have people in positions of power who are abusive, who are deviants, who harm people, who don't care about people, and it's like a trickle-down effect. And we are seeing this permeate in different facets of our lives. This is corruption on a small scale, but this is corruption. And you see this, you don't just see this, here in my building. You see it on YouTube. You may see it on your job. People that do not deserve to be in a position of power over others. People that are horrible people. But those are the ones who get voted in. Those are the ones who get promoted a lot of times. When they have no integrity. They have no character. They are totally horrible, disgusting people who only want to be in positions of power so they can say, oh, look what I can do. Look what I have. And this man, that's exactly what he wants, and he got it. And he got it because a black woman helped him that he used to position himself in this position of power. Now, I know we're not talking about political power, but when you live in a building, a community, people that rise in those positions, tenant association and stuff like that, they tend to become self-proclaimed leaders. And that can be a problem for other tenants who know that this person is a bully, he's a predator, and he's a deviant, and he's a creep. But the people in this building, they are so desperate for a leader. They are so desperate to not have to deal with any responsibility. See, they don't want to go to the office, to the rental office, and say, this tenant is on drugs. This tenant got people living with them and disturbing the peace. This tenant got her crazy son living with her, and he's going around the building harassing tenants, harassing women. This tenant is a threat to our safety because of XYZ. They don't want to do that. They would rather put that on someone else. And the very person that they're putting it on is the very person who is just like the people I just described. This is the zombie apocalypse. See, everyone thought it was going to be like Return of the Living Dead. And all of those variations of those movies where people rose up from the dead and was eating people's brains and stuff like that. But in actuality, it's much worse than that, because they don't even have to eat your brains to consume you. People are being consumed and don't even know it. And I can look at what's happening down here on the smaller levels. I can look at that, and that tells me what's going on in the upper levels of power in this world, in the power structure of this world. See, Charmed, that show Charmed, that wasn't just a television show. They were telling us the demonic hierarchy that exists in this world, the shadow world in this world that we don't understand or we don't know about. Meaning the shadow, darker governments, whatever you want to call it. So what's happening at the top is trickling down to your average person. What's happening at the pinnacle of the pyramid is happening all the way down to the root of it. And I see it now. Zombie, mindless people, no mind of their own. They will accept anything and anyone as long as they don't have to accept one word: responsibility. As long as they don't have to accept responsibility for anything. So they would rather a creep, a predator, a deviant, a man who is abusive emotionally, psychologically towards women, and possibly physically, because the woman whose door he bammed on, he told another woman that he would punch that woman in the face. She doesn't know who she's messing with. I will knock her out. I'll punch her in the face. This is what he told another tenant. I just want to remind you of that. And black women sit up under this man every day. They like that. He sits up and talks about women horribly to other women. And he's supposed to be a quote unquote heterosexual man. But they're not seeing the apathy that he has for black American women, because, you know, a lot of African men A lot of African men are effeminate in some ways. He's from Ghana. He's friends with the building manager, who's also African. And they both have the same characteristics. They have no respect for women, and they have an apathy when it comes to Black Americans. You have an apathy when it comes to Black Americans, but you want to live and prosper in Black America, and we sit back and we let this happen? No, you will not prosper in the land of my ancestors when you are showing disrespect to their descendants, brother. He reminds me of a racist white person. Not a man, not a woman, but a racist in general. That is what he reminds me of, a misogynistic racist. But this is the person that these people voted in as vice president of the Tenant Association. But this is the way of the world now. This is what the world does. There is no more having integrity. There is no more background checks. Because I feel as though that if you want to be a president or a vice president of a tenant association, there should be a certain amount of integrity that goes along with that position. And that man has demonstrated, this man that I'm referring to, he has demonstrated that he lacks character, he lacks integrity, and he lacks the qualifications to be on the board as a vice president. Especially when you're knocking at a non-board member's door, a tenant's door, threatening her, cursing her out, and then you're going around the building telling people that you slept with that woman. So that means slander if it's not true, harassment, sexual harassment, misogyny. He's also homophobic. All of these things. And what's so interesting is the lesbian couple that lives in my building. There's a lesbian couple that lives in my building. They are part of that tenant association, and he talks about them like a dog. Because he really doesn't like them because they're lesbian. And that's his prerogative. But making threats towards women, and women are the ones supporting you, and it was the very woman that you made the threat towards. Now, he didn't threaten her to her face, but that very woman that he threatened is the very woman that supported him to get on as the vice president of the tenant association. And for all intent and purposes, this man is a bum. He is a bum. So that is why I don't agree with Tyler Perry I believe he was telling Black women in particular. I don't agree with him telling Black women that Black women need to lower their standards. I mean, how much lower do you expect Black women to lower their standards, Mr. Perry? And considering your persona and what you do in your movies, I'm just saying. No shade, no read. But how much lower are Black women supposed to lower their standards? He's telling Black women that you basically should not want men who make money. Basically, that's what he's saying. Did he say that to his wife? Because black women lowering their standards, it leads to this man that I'm talking about. This is what it leads to. Supporting trash like him. That's what it leads to. When black women try to be nice and lower their standards and say, well, I'm going to help him out anyway, because, you know, he may be better than what. No, this is what happens. You lower your standards, and guess what ends up happening? You lower your standards and you get low results. Or subpar results or subpar treatment when you lower your standards. So no, I don't agree with that. I think black women should continue to have high standards. Why shouldn't you have high standards? They have high standards, don't they? This man sits around this building talking up under women's clothing. Now, they say all of these laws are in place to protect women. All of these laws that they marched for, Me Too, and all of these other laws that they started putting in place back in 2017, the Women's March and all of that, but yet none of these laws are being used to protect black women, because if they were, this man would no longer be in this building. That is why a lot of people were saying to black women when they were marching during that, women's rally in 2017, a lot of people were saying, that's not for you because the laws are not benefiting you. And they were right in some ways. If that were a white woman, and this is no disrespect to white women at all, but if that were a white woman he was doing that to, he would have been out of this building. He would have been out of this building. But the problem is black women have good hearts. Black women have good hearts. Not saying that white women don't, but black women have really good, pure hearts. And a lot of times they try to give people a second chance. And everybody is not deserving of a second chance. It doesn't mean that you have to hate the person for the rest of your life. It just means that you don't have that person in your orbit. Because, see, I'm going to tell you something. If he said that to the right black women, if he was doing this to the right black women, trust and believe, he would be howling at the moon. That's what the old timers used to say when people would work them old ancient roots on you. You know what I mean? The ancient roots and, them that mojo. No, people should not lower their standards. Lowering the standards is why we are in the predicament that we're in now, physically and spiritually, as black people. This is why. Lowering our standards. I don't want to lower my standards. If there are certain people that I don't want to be associated with, if there are certain people who are not on my level in terms of communication and understanding and comprehension, it's almost like, why would I talk to an ant? And an ant cannot communicate with me. I cannot communicate with an ant. So why would I have a conversation with an ant? You understand what I'm saying? We have nothing in common. We have nothing in common. Not consciously, physically, I mean. So why would I communicate with an ant? So when I say the zombie apocalypse is happening, it's happening now. And it's not people rising from graves, literally eating people's brains. It's people being mindless, making mindless, dumb decisions, No one is critically thinking anymore. No one has any more discernment anymore. No one is connected to spirit anymore. Because if any of these things were true, that man would not be the vice president of the tenant association in this building. Even some of the people that we look up to as celebrities, if we were using discernment, some of these people would not even be famous. Names don't even need to be named. You just pick whichever celebrity that may be for you. We are in the zombie apocalypse now. People no longer have their brains. And those of us that still do retain our identity and our brains and our functions and our discernment, we're the ones that's hated. We're the ones that's looked at as outsiders. We're the outsiders because we will not give in to their control. I don't want to be in no motherfucking tenant association unless there are people that are running it that are really going to do good for the community. Not knocking at tenants' doors, cursing them out because they were in the shower. But that woman has some blame in this because she knew the type of man that he was long before she advocated for him to become the vice president of the tenant association. She knew the type of man that he was. She knew it. But she ignored the signs and she lowered her standards. He's been telling people in the building that he had a sexual relationship with her in his recliner chair. He didn't say it to me because I don't sit around listening to bullshit like that, but it's circulating in the building. This is the type of person this man is. And this is the type of person that you all are entrusting to help tenants with problems in the building as it pertains to management and other issues in the building. You are entrusting this type of devil, this type of man. I almost said his name just now. You're entrusting this type of devil with this type of power. And this is why I said they're up under the zombie apocalypse effect. Because it's not about eating your brains. It's about consuming it. Consuming your control over the ability to make sound mind or to make sound decisions, rather, that are of a sound mind. And most of these people don't have a sound mind. And unfortunately, he's able to manipulate a lot of the women in the building. He's able to manipulate them through intimidation and through the promise of probably companionship. He is a disgusting person. And I think he's a massage therapist too. When I looked at him not long ago, he's losing a lot of weight and not in a healthy way. It reminds me of that movie Thinner, when that man pissed off those gypsies and they put a curse on him. See, people like him, people like this man that I'm talking about, these are the types of people that end up cursed. It's one thing to say fuck you or to call somebody a B, but then for you to go around trying to degrade that woman and talk about you and her had sex. That's if he said that. I don't know if it's true or not, but I tend to believe it because that's the type of character he has. Then for this man to go around talking about he had sex with this woman, to try to degrade her. So it's okay for you to enjoy sex, but it's wrong for a woman to enjoy sex. Is that why they mutilate women in some African countries? And if I'm not mistaken, Ghana is one of the, if I'm not mistaken, if I am, then I am. But if I'm not mistaken, Ghana is one of those countries where they believe in female circumcision. See, this man has an apathy towards females. He doesn't like women. Because when he and I got into it, he never went around telling people he would punch me in the face. Because if he ever punched me in the face, I promise you, I promise you, I promise you. And that's all I'm going to say on that. I will make a promise of all promises. Because these people in here don't know me like that. This used to be a nice building here where I lived. It used to be a nice building. But then they started renting to people because they, you know what happened? They lowered their standards. They lowered their standards. It used to be high standards to live in this community, but they started lowering their standards. And now we have crackheads, weirdos, creeps, deviants, woman beaters. We have all of those things now in this community that we did not have years ago. And our illustrious management, they don't care because they don't live here. So I understand the need for a tenant association, but the people that they have in position of power are the wrong people. Those people that they have on that board, they are mindless zombies and they will not get anything done. Their minds have been eaten by the dead. And the dead is the people on the top. They're the ones who want to consume your energy. They're the ones consuming people's energy. It's the people at the top. And I don't care who doesn't agree. You ain't got to agree. I'm looking at the world and how the world is operating right now. And how it's trickling down to everyday life. The people at the top are becoming more and more thirsty for energy. That's if you can call them people. And it creates people like this man who's now the vice president of the Tenant Association. It creates people like him. I predict that that tenant association will erupt in havoc and they will all begin to turn on each other. And the one that is the vice president, I predict that he will have to crawl on his belly and beg for what he wants like a snake in the sand. He will have to beg for what he wants. That is what I predict. Because usually people like that, that is what ends up happening. He is nasty to the tenants. He's nasty to everyone. And that's who y'all voted in. And then on top of that, you know that he is friends with the manager of this building. And that's a conflict of interest right there. And you really entrust this man to get things done if something is going wrong in this building? I remember when another tenant, it was another guy, had an altercation with that same African manager. This tenant association guy that I'm talking about, the other African, the vice president of the tenant association, he jumped into an altercation between the manager and another tenant. It was another man. And he says to the other tenant, "You're not going to be talking to my friend like that. You're not going to be talking to my African brother like that." They were trying to gang up on an African-American man. Had I been down there, I would have had that man's back. And I would have said, "You ain't jumping on my black American brother like that, motherfuckers. Now let's do something." You see what I'm talking about? They have an apathy towards black Americans. They have an apathy. But I'm no victim. I'm no victim. See, I don't have these issues with other cultures and, other blacks from other countries. I don't have those types of prejudices because I'm better than that. They think that they're better, but their expectations are low. They think that they're better. But these very same African men, they be up in my inbox trying to have sex with me all the time. Yeah, African men mess around on the DL too. You do know that, right? Let's talk about it. They be up in my box trying to have sex with me all the time. African men. I done had a couple of them, child. They black, so I done had a couple of them. And some big, tall, dark, muscular ones too. They like to mess around too. So let's stop playing this game. Let's stop playing this game. And I know I'm going off topic, but I'm just saying you all are human too. You have urges too, and you do things too. It ain't just black American men, honey. Trust me. Trust me, and I don't give a fluke who gets mad. You can't do nothing about it. You can try, but it won't work. See, African men try to be bullies. They try to be bullies. Some of them are outright bullies. Some of them are passive-aggressive bullies. Not all, but some of them try to be bullies. But you won't bully me. You won't bully me. Trust me. And you won't bully Haitian men either, because Haitian men are time enough for ya. You don't mess with them Haitians, because Haitians are time enough for ya. They time enough for ya. Yeah. But you want to try to bully and intimidate black American people? Our hoodoo is very strong. It is very strong, stronger than we even know. And it ain't got nothing to do with no mother freaking religion. You feel me? Good. But I just had to vent about that, y'all, because that it really bothers me, because I used to live in a very good community here. I used to live in a very good community, but then they lowered their standards. I keep saying their expectations. They lowered their standards. They lowered their standards. And they were definitely scraping at the bottom of the crab barrel when they hired an African male manager to manage this building, when he has an apathy, just like his friend, the vice president on the tenant association. So we have two African men in this building who have an apathy for black Americans. What are we going to do about that? And the sad thing is, they are brainless, zombies, mindless people too, because they too are being used in an agenda. They too are being used. Anyway, I just had to come through and get that off my chest, y'all. Black women, don't lower your standards. Reach for the stars. Hell, reach beyond the universe and stars. How about that? Because men like this vice president of the Tenant Association that I'm going to call this African guy, men like him, he's jealous of black women. He's jealous of African. See, African black women, they ain't fooling with them. So he came over here thinking that he could bully and intimidate American black women, and that's going to get him seriously, you know what? Because black American women don't put up with the same stuff that other women put up with. And he does not want the darkness that I can bring into his life to befall upon him. He doesn't want that. He doesn't want that. Trust me, he does not want that. He does not. I am very, 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 very proficient in that when I have to be. Not to just be going around, I believe in justice. And they have and this is what I'm going to close out and say. They have an unjust person, an unjust, unspirited person in a position that you're supposed to be seeking justice for other people. And they put an unjust person in a position where you're supposed to be seeking justice for other people when they're wronged. And that's what the Tenant Association is all about. It's not about drinking punch and eating cookies and having parties. When management ignores you, you should be able to go to the Tenant Association people to get results when your needs are not being met by management. And they put an unjust, deviant, perverted, creepy, misogynistic man in that position. What a world, what a world, what a world. What a world, what a world, what a world. That's all I gotta say. What a world. Anyway, this is your host, The Occult View. I just had to come through and talk about that. I had to dip back down into the 3D4 moment and talk about that. Thank you.